Good evening, folks. So I wanted to take a minute, to move away from the Avery case for a minute. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about Antonio Demeules. Now, he is the young man who was ran over in Isanti, Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota. And I am extremely disturbed by this case on so many levels. One of the reasons that I'm disturbed about this is because a young man lost his life, and he's not getting any justice. The fucking driver is not being held responsible for what was done. And this is what gets me. Now, it's basically the final incident report, and it was prepared by investigator Robert Bowker of the Isanti County Sheriff's Department. We've identified my first victim. Bowker, I'm coming for you. He states, or no, this is to him. This is from some fucking asshole DA, I'm sure. Hold on, let's see. This is from Jeffrey Edblad. Wow. It doesn't have the same ring as Kratz, but I'm sure I can come up with something. To Investigator Bowker. Now, he states here, Edblad does, in order for a person to be convicted of criminal vehicular homicide, the state must be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a defendant caused the death or of another person under any of the following circumstances. 1, in a grossly negligent manner. 2, in a negligent manner while under the influence of alcohol. Or, there's like 8 of these, but I'll read the ones that I feel are pertinent to the case. Where the driver who causes the accident leaves the scene of the accident in violation of Minnesota Statute 169.09, subsection 1 through 6. Folks, the investigators at first said that they estimated Adam Mackey's speed to be around 70 miles an hour. In the final report here, it states that he was going between 28 and 33 miles an hour. I call bullshit, okay? There is no way. There is no way he was going 28 to 33 miles an hour and did that much damage to that young man. I said it before and I'm going to say it again. And I'm sorry to Antonio's parents to say this, because I know it must hurt you to hear this repeatedly. But these people need to hear the awful details to get them as angry as we need them to be. Folks, Antonio Demeules' entire body was broken. Every bone in his body was broken. His spine was severed, and his heart exploded in his chest. You don't do that to a human body. I don't give a fuck how small it is. If you're going 28 to 33 miles an hour. That sort of damage is only done to a human body if you are going at an excessive rate of speed. That is a high impact, blunt force trauma. And I want you people to think about this. Antonio was still alive when 2 Good Samaritans stopped to assist him and attempted to perform CPR on him. He was alive, which means that he felt the pain. If you've ever even just hit a limb really hard on something and you feel that soreness for days on end, imagine that times 1,000 and you get kind of in the ballpark of what it would feel like to break that bone, that one bone. We're talking about this child's entire body. If his heart exploded, that means his lungs were compromised, so he was laboring to breathe. He was freaking the fuck out. He was terrified. And he was 15. He was still a child. Now, this is what really fucking... There's evidence to the contrary. According to Adam Mackey's neighbor, who spoke with Mackey upon his return to his residence immediately following the crash, the neighbor observed Mackey looking at the truck, and Mackey stated to the neighbor that he thought he had hit a turkey with his truck. And yet, you didn't see any feathers or fur, and you still didn't think, gee, maybe I should turn around and go see what the fuck I hit? I call bullshit, Mackey. The neighbor stated that he did not smell alcohol on Mackey's breath. He did not see Mackey stumble or hear Mackey speak with a slurred speech pattern. The neighbor went on to state that he observed no effects of alcohol on Mackey following the crash. Well, what luck for the Asante Sheriff's Department to have an alcohol intoxication expert who just so happens to live right next door. What the fuck? They're taking the neighbor, his word, into account on this? As to whether or not Mackey was drunk. And you know what, folks? It doesn't really even matter if he was or he wasn't. The fact is that he hit a 15-year-old child. He was obviously going at an excessive rate of speed, and he didn't stop to see what he hit or render aid to what he hit. He just continued on home. And again, his house is 2.1 miles from the crash site. Right next to the crash site is a business that happened to be open with its floodlights on. The Minnesota statute states that you must stop within a reasonable, safe distance from the point of crash to check for damage and see if anybody needs any help. 2.1 miles is not a reasonable distance, and it's sure as fuck not the first safe stop on that road. There are several gas stations, a McDonald's, and that one business that is right there at the fucking crash site that he could have pulled over and seen what the fuck, but he chose not to. And do you want to know why, folks? Because he was drunk. He was drunk because he was coming from a bar that incidentally his girlfriend works at. And this man has Grand Theft Auto and several DUIs on his record, and you're telling me that he fucking suddenly turned into a church boy? What, do you think he was sitting there at the bar having Shirley Temples? What the fuck is wrong with you, Asante? Seriously. Folks, I'm going to keep pushing on this because Antonio deserves justice. This was someone's brother. He had brothers. He had older brothers and younger brothers that now don't get to see their brother at all. They don't get that experience of growing up with him. This was a son, and his parents now don't get to see, they don't get the pleasure of watching him graduate high school or go off to college or dance with him at his wedding. They don't get to see him be a proud papa. They don't get to watch him play with their grandchildren. And let me tell you something, folks. As a person who has had to bury one of her siblings, it is the single most gut-wrenching experience of my life. Burying a parent, burying a grandparent, yeah, it sucks. But burying somebody that you grew up with, that was there with you during your childhood and knows the craziness that is your family, that is unnatural. And it is heartbreaking. And it is the kind of pain that you never get over. Ever. So, for the sake of Antonio, and for the sake of his siblings, for the sake of his family, having to live through this, call the Asante County DA. Ask him what the fuck he is thinking. Write your congressman. Call the Attorney General of Minnesota. And let's make some noise. Let's pressure them into doing their job. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you next video.